Your Symphony Scrapbook. Do you know what instrument that is? Do you know what composer wrote that passage? This is probably the first time you've heard that particular bit of music played all alone without the full orchestra. But we'll find out about that later, along with many more interesting things in this series of programs transcribed by WMAQ in cooperation with one of America's truly outstanding music organizations, the Great Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And now here is George Kuiper, manager of the orchestra, to introduce our story behind the music.
Thank you very much. We are here to bring you the story behind the music you love and to introduce you to the men who make that music at Orchestra Hall. You'll also get to hear an informal and easy-to-understand discussion of music and its interesting personalities. And what's more, you listening right now have an opportunity to win 2 main-floor tickets for a concert by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And now let's open our symphony scrapbook to the page devoted to the trumpet family. And we have with us Mr. Renold Schilke, member of the trumpet section of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Mr. Schilke, I'm sure a few of our listeners really could recognize that interesting instrument that you use at the beginning of this program, and I wish you'd identify it for them and identify the passage you played and perhaps play some more of it.
The passage was from Handel's Messiah, The Trumpet Shall Sound. The instrument is as close as we can find an exact replica of the instrument used at that time for the first performance of the Messiah.
I think it'd be interesting to describe that because it certainly doesn't look like a modern trumpet. It looks more to me like an old French hunting horn.
That possibly could be a very excellent description. The instrument in itself is 97 inches long, and it is wound up in a circle, let us say about a foot in diameter, with a mouthpiece at approximately 45-degree angle to the bell, in such a position so the hand can be used in helping the intonation of certain false notes in passages.
But the notes produced entirely by the lips?
Entirely.
I wonder if we could hear that instrument again.
Really.
How late was that instrument used?
Well, I would say it was in use up to approximately 1720, 1725, and possibly at intermittent periods even later than that. The first change from it was to an instrument with a little bit more directional sound, however, not as well in tune or as possible to be played as well as in tune, but it produced considerably more tone.
Well, while the sound of the clarinet is still in our ears, I wonder if it would be possible to, say, make a comparison, either playing some more on the clarinet to make it especially clear, and then compare the modern trumpet sound.
Well, I'd possibly it'd be well to play something more from our early English music and give a passage from Purcell's King Arthur, the Trumpet Voluntary. And then after that, I will play the same thing on the modern trumpet so that you can compare the difference in sound.
sound on the modern trumpet?
Generally played in the modern orchestra, this would, in our modern pitch, would be almost a full tone higher. But for the sake of tonal comparison, I'll play it in the same pitch that I played the clarion at.
Going back to the history of the development of the trumpet, you said it was used until the early years of the 18th century. That was a little before Beethoven's time, wasn't it? What happened between the, say, Handel and Purcell and Beethoven as far as the instrument was concerned?
Well, the instrument that was first used by Beethoven, that's after around 1790, was the same length of tubing as a clarion. That is, it could utilize a harmonic series where the widest interval was an open third in the first octave, and in the second octave practically complete a major scale.
But why has the shape changed in the meantime? The clarion is round coils.
Mainly for projection of tone, so the tone would be very directional, where the composer or conductor would want the tone, and then to enable them to produce a tuning slide on the instrument. The round tubing making it impossible to change the intonation of the instrument.
I wonder if we could hear that instrument. This is the Beethoven trumpet.
I'll play a small portion from the Andante cum modo from Symphony No. 5.
Sounds much like the modern trumpet, but isn't there one rather sharp note in there somewhere?
That is the same thing that Beethoven objected to, and possibly featured the instrument more than any other reason. He commissioned many men to build him a trumpet that would play a true F for him instead of approaching an F sharp, which is impossible on the harmonic series of an open pipe. So the first instrument that was developed then was one with one valve, which would lower the entire harmonic series one full tone.
With the same length of tubing?
With the same length of tubing, 98 inches. So they would come to a note like the offending F, and they would change the harmonic series to that of an instrument 106 inches long, making possible to tune the notes.
Could we have an example of that?
The same passage now on the modern trumpet.
Did Beethoven get what he wanted in the form and shape and development of the trumpet?
For the numbers that were written up to this time, they could be played much better with that instrument, but he still was not satisfied. And he commissioned Adolphe Sax then to develop an instrument that was fully chromatic. And after much struggle, he finally utilized the instrument half the length of the old trumpet. And in that, he incorporated valves that would permit him to use 7 natural trumpets, or the harmonics possible to 7 natural trumpets.
Well, now, has the trumpet, the development of the trumpet changed, or has the trumpet sound changed much, the tone, say in the last 60 years, during the history of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra?
Yes, I would say it has changed considerable. I would like to play you a passage on an instrument that was played in the Chicago Symphony during its first few years by Renold. I'll take a passage from Meyerbeer's Fra Diavolo, and then directly after it I'll play the same passage so that people can compare the intonation as well as the tone.
That's about the beginning of the orchestra back in the 1890s.
That's right.
And now on the modern trumpet that we're using today. Why has that change occurred? Because conductors want a sharper, clearer tone?
I imagine that is the reason. They are always looking for a more resonant tone, one that will blend better with your full string section.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Schilke, for this interesting exposition of the development of your wonderful instrument. And now we'd like to send 2 tickets for a Thursday evening concert of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra to Miss Schilke of Chicago, Illinois, who tells an interesting anecdote about Dr. Frederick Stock, conductor of the Chicago Symphony for almost 40 years. It occurred on a New Year's Eve, December 31st, in the early 30s, and Dr. Stock had just completed a performance of The Firebird and turned to his audience and said, "You didn't like that so much. What? Well, we will brighten your evening with the Stars and Stripes Forever." And after that piece had rung out clearly and beautifully, he topped it by Auld Lang Syne, and when the concert had ended, he turned to the audience and said, "Now you can all go home and make whoopee." And thanks to Mrs. Schilke for her interesting addition to our scrapbook.
Listen again next Sunday at this same time to another transcribed symphony scrapbook for an interesting discussion of music and its personalities. You'll meet Radovaj La, member of the bass section of the orchestra, together with Mr. George Kuiper, manager of the symphony.